Do you think kitchen gadgets really help you? Do they? Do they make things easier? Do they save you time? Or are they just a crutch that really keeps you from learning? But where do you stand on this? Can a closet full of gadgets take the place of a brain filled with skills? Well, that's what we'll talk about today on the Carefree Cook's Code. I'm Chef Todd Moore, and this is the Carefree Cook's Code, every Tuesday live at noon Eastern. Here's our challenge. How can home cooks cook freely with creativity, confidence, and pride while ignoring recipes and still impressing themselves and others with what they cook? Well, the answer is found in becoming empowered with how cooking works, using dependable and repeatable methods of cooking that work for any ingredient, for any diet, and any desire, just like chefs do. And we'll know we've cracked it when everyone sees cooking as an exciting and rewarding way to improve their relationships, their lifestyles, and their health through better food and cooking. This is the Carefree Cook's Code. Boom! Yeah. Hey, welcome. My favorite part of the week, right? Welcome back to the Carefree Cook's Code, everyone. We're live every Tuesday at noon Eastern, and if you're looking for past Carefree Cook's Code episodes, go to my archive on Facebook. You can see a whole bunch of 500 or so videos on YouTube. And now you can see what we're cooking for dinner when you follow Chef Todd Moore on Instagram as well. Oh, this is the lobster thermidor from Saturday that I baked off. Cool. Oh, and to remind you of our very busy live schedule lately, we will be cooking together on Thursdays and Saturdays, and along with our brand new Carefree Cook Study Hall on Wednesdays at 3 p.m. But that's only for lifetime members. There we go. Wait, let's see if this works. Half face and no. That's only for lifetime members of web cooking classes. It's held in our private Facebook community because we're the Carefree Cooks, right? We create our own recipes. We bring friends and family together. We learn every time we cook. We create our own cooking style because we practice pro methods and we wind up really loving our cooking. That's what we're all about. And today I'm here to ask you a very blunt question, and I want you to think about your answer very honestly. Think about this honestly now, okay? Are you enjoying your time in the kitchen more or less lately? With all that's been going on, is it more or less? I mean, because it seems to me that people are spending a lot more time in their kitchens, but what I really want to know is if you're enjoying any of this time, you know? Faced with having to cook just about every single meal for a few months, does this seem like fun or does it seem like a chore? Because my goal is really overall is to make cooking not only less stressful for people, but actually more enjoyable, because I've found over more than a decade of teaching, when you discover the hows and whys behind cooking, when you focus on the heat and not a clock, you start to gain confidence in your cooking. And with confidence in repeatable methods, one starts to explore their creativity, you know? And then you start making up a whole variety of original dishes that you're just whipping up. To me, that's what makes cooking fun, right? But look, first, I've got a what am I for us today. Take a good look. Tell me in the comments section below, what am I? Do you know what that is? Okay? Good. Look, I'm not here to take your gadgets from you today, all right? Let me just take the whole tone down a notch. I'm not coming for your crock pots, okay? I think you have a constitutional right to bear crock pots. Our forefathers said so, right? Yeah, I'm not a constitutional lawyer, and I'm not even telling the truth, but I'm not here to start a food fight today. I'm here to encourage some thought. There's no right answer to any of this. There's no wrong answer. There is only what is right for you and maybe some new stuff to think about. That's what I want to do. Because first, look, I'm not talking about... let's move my chair. There we go. I should have set that up ahead of time, no? Look, I'm not talking about cooking today, okay? As I've always said, a skilled cook should be able to cook on a hot rock, So no matter what the heat source is, it's okay. Whatever way you like to cook, it's okay with me. But when you're preparing the food for cooking, there are really only 4 procedures that you need to accomplish. And these are cutting, grating or pureeing, mixing, and grinding. And any of these things in prep, before we get to the heat, you can decide, are you going to go old school or new school? So let's just zip through some of these things. Like, let's talk about cutting tools. Now, if you're an old schooler with cutting tools, you go to the old school, there are only 4 knives you need in your kitchen. You do not need 17 steak knives. You don't need a special Japanese one and a German one and one that's got a design on it and so on. With all due respect to the people that like lots of knives, I don't ever tell you that you must buy certain things to be a great cook. But when you get down to it, there are really only 4 knives. A chef's knife you like, a boning knife, a paring knife, and a serrated slicing knife. That's the minimum that you need. But, you can go a little further. You can go new school on all this, right? A mandolin. Oh, I showed you the ginger that I had the other day. Forget what we were cooking, but I took out my mandolin. I sliced the ginger really thinly, and I pickled it. I don't know that I could slice that consistently thinly with my chef's knife, as good as I am. And potatoes, like doing potato chips consistently that you can see through. Now, the mandolin is pretty much the scariest tool in the entire kitchen, so I don't like using the mandolin. I have a cut glove that I put on whenever I use that. I don't mess with it. A food processor, right? I don't care how good you are with your knife. You're not going to be able to puree something, Think about an electric carving knife. I mean, some people have this, they take it out at the holidays. I'm not sure why you need an electric knife at the holidays necessarily. I think it's maybe because Grandpa had one, And so you decide, which of these tools do you like? Which of the tools do you really need? Which of the tools are you comfortable with? You decide. I'm not here to preach about it. Like, everybody thinks that their chopper dicer device that they have is safer and quicker than a knife. And of course, you go to a home show, you're going to see these things demonstrated, and I've seen it dozens of times. Let me give you a quick story about this. Let me told you a story, as Justin Wilson would say. Look, years ago, I had a neighbor who considered herself a really good cook, as she was a really good cook. She said that she was taught by her mom, and usually when people tell me they were taught by their moms, I know there's a lot of love in there. But, originally, this was a pretty close-knit neighborhood that we had just moved into. We just built a house. There were a lot of community barbecues, Thanksgiving dinners, a lot of holiday parties, things like that throughout the year. And there was always good food in the neighborhood because it was brand new. Every house, somebody moved in. They were excited about their house, and younger couples, younger families like Heather and I. And we had great parties, and that was before all the kids started to arrive. We had some awesome parties before the kids started coming. And, I was so impressed with her cooking that when she brought things for the potluck, or she invited us to Thanksgiving and then Christmas dinner, just really, really generous with her cooking. And I find people that love their cooking are very generous with them. But this woman, entertaining dynamo, And one of the reasons that that was a drunken friend, I think I found one night. But one of the reasons that I appreciated her so much is because I've had this problem my whole life. Well, at least my chef life. Nobody wants to invite a chef over to their house for dinner. People always ask me, like, are you really critical, of the dinner? They never want to cook for me because they think I would point out what was wrong with their cooking. And I hate that, First, I'm missing out on some really good dinner parties because of it, probably. And secondly, it's just not true. I'm thrilled when somebody cooks for me. I am not the critical, snotty chef. I think it's really impressive to cook for an entire neighborhood of people or invite your neighbors over for a multi-course holiday dinner. Back in the day, that was the thing to do. And really, at that point, I'd be a jerk to sit there and criticize the whole thing. Kind of snotty chef you think I am. But there was this one time that I came to tell you about. This occasion that we had to cook together for a 4th of July block party. We did crayfish, steamed crayfish, like Brett is pouring out here. This was going to be a big event. The street was blocked off by the police, people wheeling out their grills, their smokers in front of their house. Everybody had coolers of beer. The lawn games came out. There was a lot of food prep to do for this big party. And of course, Judy had volunteered to do it. And I couldn't sit there. I couldn't let her volunteer for all the work while a professional chef, a guy that owned a catering company at the time, this is many years ago, I'm not going to stand there and watch, right? I mean, even though I did usually donate all the tables, all the chairs, all the tablecloths, all the silverware, all the chafing dishes, all the servicewares, all the paper plates, all the garbage bags. But who's counting? I was never counting, right? But look, if Judy, the entertaining Dynamo, is in, I'm in too, right? We're going to go in there. So I go into her kitchen and she has her nose in a recipe book, like she's reading it in Braille, or she's extremely nearsighted, She went to the pantry, she brought down an onion, she returned to the cookbook, traced a few more lines with her finger, and I said to her, "Oh, onion, Judy, I'll cut that onion for you, I've cut a few onions in my day." And no, she says, "I've got it. I have a certain way I like to do it." I remember her saying, and, knowing her, of course, she had a certain way that she wanted to do it. So I watched her go up into her cabinet, reach to the top shelf, and bring down some kind of chopper dicer device. So she placed the gadget on the counter. She put the chopping bowl on the motor, on the shaft, but it didn't really fit well at first. And she had to play with it a little bit, and it finally clicked down into place. And then she took the blade. She just put the blade on the shaft, but it has to go in a certain way too. So she had to struggle with that a little bit before it went into place. And then she has to get out her cutting board anyway because the onion's too big. So she gets out the cutting board, she gets out the knife, she's got to cut the onion in half and peel the onion, then to put it in the chopper dicer pieces, she has to put it in 4 different pieces. So then she puts in 2 pieces because 4 don't fit. And then she has to put the lid on, and then she puts the lid on and she pushes the button and nothing happens. It was unplugged. So then she's got to go over to the wall. She got to unplug it. She pulses the onion. She got to take off the lid. She turns the blade out. She turns the thing upside down onto the cutting board. She transfers all the zapped onion into another bowl that she's dirtying now. And then she's got to do the whole procedure for the other half of the onion, fidgeting with the bowl, messing with the blade, getting the second half. The lid doesn't really fit. Puree the onion, put it out on the bowl. Oh my goodness, by the time she had that bowl washed, dried, rinsed, put the gadget back up in the top of the cabinet, I was exhausted watching her. Forget about the onion. Chopping the onion was secondary. The amount of time she spent assembling, disassembling, and washing that gadget, it was incredible. That chopper dicer device of hers was costing her time in the kitchen. And I just wanted to take her aside and go, there's something that we teach in culinary school. It's the very first thing we teach in culinary school. Well, look, that day Judy was making a salsa. It's a good salsa, but when it was done, you can imagine the onions were pureed. They weren't neatly diced. They weren't all the same size. And you may have heard me say the culinary school mantra that consistency of cut is consistency of cook. And consistency of cut is consistency of look. So look, I'm not criticizing Judy, right? It was the chopper dicer device that messed up the dish, for sure. Everything else about it was perfect. And it just needed a little bit of knife skills. It just needed a small focus on how the ingredients were prepared. And I mean, the truth is I could have cut that onion into consistently diced pieces before she even got that gadget assembled, And my knife wipes clean, with one stroke. And it's a really good example about how these devices can actually cost you time in the kitchen. So let's move on. Side story. Let's talk about grating and pureeing. Pardon, if you're old school, you may have a food mill, like Grandma started a food mill. You might have a box grater. This is the old school. How about one of those potato mashers with the back and forth curly Q kind of thing? If you remember using these hand tools, grandma's hand tools, and it brings you joy to hand mash the potatoes, you should do it. That's fun. because the alternative is the new school, is the food processor, is the Ninja or the Vitamix, is the immersion blender, right? These things, are they good for you or are they not? You know, I don't really like my blender that much. I don't use the food processor. But when I have like a soup or a tomato sauce in a bowl, I can't take my knife and stir it around real quickly and expect to puree anything. You know, my stick blender is one of the things that I really love. Or if you're going to mix things, old school, you got to whisk. I like whisking things. I like whisking cream by hand. It gives me a little bit of a workout. I know I've put my effort into it, you know. A hand blender, it's still electric, but the two spools that you licked when you were a kid. Or go even further back, how about the hand crank egg beater that Grandma had? There's a joy in the tactile nature of using these things. If you go new school, then it's a KitchenAid mixer maybe. You don't have to have a mixer to mix things. People have made cakes long before KitchenAid mixers. Maybe there's a electric hand mixer like I was talking about. And lastly, let's talk about grinding. These are the prep skills, because if you're old school, it's a mortar and pestle. And a lot of people like grinding and smashing up their own spices. If you want to plug it into a wall, then get a spice grinder, but that might not be as tactile. That might not be fun. So, look, those are all the basic tools that you need. And you can make your own choices in preparing your own food, whether you're going to go old school or new school. All you really got to decide is if the time is worth the money spent. Is there time versus enjoyment? Is there convenience versus money? Because to me, it's really that simple. But look, let me warn you about needing a specific gadget or tool to accomplish a task, okay? I'm talking about a specific gadget or tool. Because what if you're without that tool one day? What if you can't find your vegetable peeler? Could you do it with a paring knife? Right, a basic paring knife? What if you can't find your shrimp deveiner, your apple corer, your citrus sectioner? Could you still do the job with a basic knife? Let me give you another quick story. Full of stories today, which, by the way, they're jackhammering the street out there at precisely the right time. But, you know, many years ago, I taught swimming to children. There's lifeguard pre-Chef Todd. I think that's about 1981, 1982, something like that. So I taught swimming to little kids for the county. And half the kids would bring nose plugs. And I hated nose plugs. I really didn't want the kids to have to rely on the nose plugs. And I would try, you know, how do you get a kid to not bring his nose plugs? How do you explain this to the parent that thinks the kid is going to drown without the nose plugs, you know? And I tried to force them to take the nose plugs off. And everybody is banned. Nose plugs are banned, you know? But I realized that was never going to work, because what I realized was this is a security issue. Those nose plugs, they didn't help the kids at all, but they felt like they helped them. And this security thing, the brain loves security. The human brain is there to keep you safe. It's there to keep you comfortable at all times. And there was no way I was going to ban or forbid the nose plugs from my swimming class, because that would have made the kids even more nervous about learning how to swim. You know? I would have had all of them petrified and terrified, so I had to come up with a new strategy. And honestly, it's the same strategy I'm going to try and use on you in a few minutes. Because I'm going to tell you what I did to those kids in just a minute, and how I got them to willingly throw their nose plugs away. So before I tell you that, let me ask you this. Would you rather be able to swim without nose plugs? Would you rather not have to have your nose plugs with you at all times? Because when it comes to the actual cooking, when it comes to the time to apply the heat to food, this is where everybody falls into one of two categories: nose plugs or no nose plugs, convenience or curiosity. You know, one of our, let me relate it this way. One of our carefree cooks of longest standing is Don. Don is a tremendous asset to our community. And this is what Don posted. God, he's a generous guy, right? Always giving his time, always helping to guide other carefree cooks. And there was this tools versus gadgets conversation going on in our Carefree Cooks community for lifetime members of web cooking classes. And this was so brilliant because I want to show you that this is how Don put it. Don says one group focuses on the end result as the accomplishment, and they want to get there as easily and fast as possible. The other group focuses on the cooking itself, and while the results are the end goal, the true joy is the journey in getting there. I mean, really well said. If you're on the nose plugs side of things, I understand why you have a crock pot. I understand why you have a sous vide stick, an Instacooker, or cookware that's supposed to do the work for you. Again, I'm not judging. No judgments here. It's probably because you're pressed for time. You've got a busy schedule. You've got a lot of responsibilities. And cooking is just not like the high priority. It might even be kind of a bothersome chore that takes up the time you don't have. I understand. I really do. It's okay. I appreciate the fact that you're cooking. All right, that's step one. You're using food from the grocery store to actually cook with, not microwave or get takeout, But so that's a good thing. But you're still on team nose plugs. I'm sorry, but you're on team nose plugs. All right. But on the other hand, if you don't need the nose plugs to swim, okay, if you enjoy the journey involved in learning. So when I taught swimming and half the class would show up with the nose plugs, one of the first lessons would be how much fun it is to blow bubbles through your nose with your head in the water. Because the idea is if air is coming out, water can't get in. So I created this tremendous game of who could blow the most bubbles out of their nose. And these kids, they started enjoying the sensation of blowing bubbles streaming, past their ears onto the surface. They were watching each other blow bubbles. They'd laugh and point at each other. And the nose plugs kids, they were sitting there looking at all the fun they were missing out on with their noses plugged up, that they tossed those darn nostril crutches because everybody else was having so much fun blowing bubbles from their nose. It was a snotty mess. Yeah, we might have had to clean the pool, but look, if you love the process, if you love the process of learning, love the process of cooking, if you're curious about your journey, if you gain skills with each meal you cook because you're paying attention, well, that's the path to becoming a carefree cook. And these are the people that cherish their saute pan because it's the vessel for them to create with, right? These are the people who love their knives. Collect knives and enjoy them. Maybe they have just a few pans. You have a favorite. I know you do. You might not admit it like your children, but you have a favorite pan. You love your spice rack. Oh, you like getting new spices and combining them into spice teams. You like setting a pretty table, right? All these things are like blowing bubbles from your nose. They're fun. They feel good. And if you're a curious cook, and if you enjoy the process and you learn every time you cook, and you have this great sense of accomplishment and pride when you nail it, and you love your cooking. And you don't need nose plugs. None of them. Because those gadgets, they might not even be helping you. They might just be clogging up your nose and preventing you from breathing. Here's the answer to the what am I today. Anybody know what this is? I don't. No idea. All right? So if you know what it is, good for you. I have no idea. I have no opinion of air fryers. I have no opinion of the boil and bag stick. I have no other gadget. You know why? Not because I'm mean or judgmental. Because honestly, I've never owned one. I can't possibly recommend something I know nothing about. I mean, I got some gadgets, but I'm always sure that they're helping me out. My gadgets generally do the things that my tools can't do for me, right? And I'm going to include my stove and my oven as tools, not gadgets, because I can do just about everything I want with the traditional types of heat. And I guess that's me, a traditionalist in a way, because traditional is a lot easier to understand. You know, it's more effective when used correctly. It's a lot more fun than pushing two buttons, you know? So when you ask me for an Instapot or a sous vide recommendation, I honestly don't know. That's the kindest way I can say it. It's a little like asking a painter for his recommendation for an inkjet printer. Oh, except for my Eiffel Tower pancake printer. That's the one gadget I am never giving up. Look how cool this is. Eiffel Tower pancakes. It has got to be worth it. Oh, one last thing. I have to say happy birthday to Harry the Hound. Yep, you've heard his distant barking at the most inopportune times during the videos. He is always trying to be heard, but today we are celebrating Harry the Hound's 90th birthday. 16 human years is what we're estimating. So happy birthday to everyone. If you want to wish Harry a happy birthday, to everyone who has heard his bark in the background, we're going to have a little happy birthday party for Harry later. Look, if you know someone who would benefit from moving their focus from gadgets to skills, then please go ahead and like and share this video so we can help everyone enjoy their kitchen time even more this year. And I need to remind you, the seasons are changing and your cooking should change with it. Changing how you cook, even what you cook, is a big part of my 5-step plan for cool summer cooking. And that's my free online class this week. Summer Cooking is Cool. It's 5 simple steps to lighter, healthier cooking. And you can check for available class times at webcookingclasses.com/sun. Says Chef Todd Moore, bye-bye, reminding you that there's a method to your unplugged cooking success. I will see Web Cooking Classes members tomorrow at 3 p.m. within the Carefree Cooks community for the study hall. The rest of you I'll see Thursday at 6:30 where we'll be cooking something cool. Bye, everyone.